we have a high rate of obesity in the state of Alabama. Well, it's not because of all SNAP recipients are fat. That doesn't make sense. And so it's those persons that have choices to do whatever they want to do are fat. And if they ain't on SNAP. So, so we kind of pick your battles, but those kinds of things, it hurts your heart when you see those kinds of approaches. We spent 3 hours talking about dogs.
Yeah.
And we have people dying in the street. We have the lack of health care, affordable health care or expanded health care within our state. But then we'll spend 3 hours talking passionately about a dog. And so sometimes I think that as overall, our priorities are a little off track.
Alrighty, welcome back. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy. I believe, Representative Sellers, if I am not mistaken, you've been here one other time. Is that correct? Am I correct?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. I know that all these interviews run together for you, and so I can't imagine trying to keep everybody straight and doing everything. So, but we appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, most definitely.
Hey, all right. So we're wrapping this thing up. We're recording this on the final day of the legislative session. I guess you know what. Let's start with an easy one or maybe a hard one. Just when you look at this session, what pops to mind immediately? What was good? What was bad?
I think that there has been some not only just challenges, but I think there have been also some wins. I think overall we have won in education, dealing with education. As we move the needle for our schools, schools have moved up over the last especially the last 4 years. And so, I think that we've started to really kind of get a focus on putting more resources into making sure that education is facilitated very well. So when I did some numbers, I think just for District 57, as we influence the Education Trust Fund budget, has influenced anywhere between $350 to $370 million over the last 4 years. And so, of course, we know this year, Education Trust Fund budget is $10.6 billion. And the impacts that it makes within that are really kind of tremendous. Last year, we started doing the RAISE Act, which added more money, especially to Title I schools, to facilitate some foundational things that they actually needed. And we did it again this year, add more money in the RAISE Act, which actually, those schools that suffer, because you have some schools or school systems that don't necessarily suffer because of all of the resources and support that they get, but then you have some areas that really need that extra boost. And I think we've done well at making sure we try to facilitate that from that regard. But overall, it's always a fight. And sometimes it's a fight on philosophy. It's a fight with whether you're D or R, especially being in the super minority within this House or in this legislature. It's always a fight to make sure that the cultural issues that we may have are not overlooked, and making sure that we take care of those, the least, the lost, and the left behind.
Yeah, it does seem like y'all have been particularly effective. I'm talking about the Democrats, and especially in the House, have been particularly effective in kind of staving off some of the more harmful national trends that have hit other red states, and especially Democrats in legislatures in which they are a super minority as well. And y'all seem to have figured out ways to, I guess, maybe divide and conquer would be the best term, or to pick your spots, to pick the fights and to work across the aisle on certain issues and to hold your ground on other things. Is that does that sort of thing happen from the planning stages? How have y'all been able to do that?
I think that fight happens, as an overall kind of strategic plan, but I think that fight is every day, one day at a time, because each day brings about a different challenge. And so whether we have to learn how to pick our battles and pick our fights specifically to make sure that we have the right and the proper wins. You don't want to just fight or try to kill everything then things that you need to get through don't get through.
You're right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think there's an overall strategic plan in regards to picking those particular fights and making sure that we have win after win after win if we can.
Hmm. Representative Sellers, Josh has asked you about some of the, I guess, some of the partisan dynamics. As you think about being a Democrat in this legislature, would you say that as a Democrat, you feel good about what happened in this legislative session, or do you feel like there's more that could have or should have been done as a Democrat?
There- There's always more that could and should be done at the end of the day, even as a Democrat. Um, there we put up good fights. I mean, we have some stuff that it just doesn't make sense. Even something as simple as just like the SNAP bill, dealing with SNAP, which is the nutrition bill. You know, that fight is not about sodas and gum and candy. That fight is about the have and the have-nots, or telling the have-nots how they need to utilize or do what they, telling them, not giving them the choice of doing what they may want to do. And you may say, well, we have a high rate of obesity in the state of Alabama. Well, it's not because of all SNAP recipients are fat. That doesn't make sense. And so it's those persons that have choices to do whatever they want to do are fat. And
Mhm.
if they ain't on SNAP. So, so we kind of pick your battles, but those kinds of things, it kind of, it hurts your heart when you see those kinds of approaches. I mean, we spent 3 hours talking about dogs.
Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, we have people dying in the street. We have the lack of health care, affordable health care or expanded health care within our state. But then we'll spend 3 hours talking passionately about a dog. And so sometimes I think that as overall, our priorities are a little off track,
I'm glad
but
you
not as a
said,
Democrat.
yeah, I'm glad that you said it's not as though all, and I would add, or only SNAP
Yes,
beneficiaries are obese or overweight, because we know that ain't true. So
absolutely not
let
true.
me let me go to something real lighthearted here. I was complimenting you on your pretty snazzy bow tie there before we started recording, and you shared something interesting that I'd never heard. What? There's a specific reason why you're wearing a bow tie today. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is bow tie day in this state house. It started by Representative Napoleon Bracey many years ago, and he keeps up the tradition of doing it the last couple of days or last day of session. And for those that do not have bow ties of their own, he provides bow ties for them. And so, House Democrat or Republican, we all, pick wear bow ties on that day.
It strikes me as not only a sort of a fun tradition, but also perhaps a unifying tradition. Something
Yes,
that even if you couldn't agree on anything else with Republicans the whole
yes,
session, at least you all could agree on
you agree on
your
a bow
fashion
tie.
choice, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
love it. I
yes.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, you mentioned. I'm glad you did. You mentioned the attitude towards the dogs, um, and I've made this argument before in some columns and on this podcast that if we treated dogs the way that we treat humans in our prison system, there would be, I mean, could you imagine the public outcry if I told you dozens of dogs have died in these state sanctioned kennels and shelters where because of neglect and abuse, and because they weren't properly monitored, and they continue to die every single day. Many of them are very malnourished. Many of them are not receiving the medications that they receive. Do you know what the public outcry for that would be?
Oh,
And yet, that's exactly what is taking place. in our prisons every day, well documented, well accounted for, every day costing us billions and billions of dollars. What is it going to take for us to get a handle on the prison system, and why does it continue to languish in such a state?
Because we have missed, I think, a missed opportunity of viewing what really happens within prison or within our prison system. And it's ironic that you brought that up. Just on by happenstance, I met one of the guys that was responsible for the documentary that was done um, in the Alabama prison at the gas station on Tuesday, and he saw my signs on my vehicle and came over to introduce himself to me. But it's interesting that you said that. But you are absolutely correct. What if um, the dogs or the animals that are in the pound were treated like we treat folks in the prison? Then it will be a massive outcry of people. You would just be amazed at the number of emails that I've received leading up to the piece of legislation dealing with dogs about supporting that bill. And then after the vote took place, the number of emails that I received, thank you for protecting the puppies. And which I thought, well, what if we put this energy into making sure that our healthcare was expanded and healthcare was in for every single citizen in the state of Alabama? What if we put that energy into making sure that equality and diversity and inclusion was every place in every organization and in every corporation and every job in the state of Alabama? What if we put that energy into making sure that our prison system was where it needs to be, where it should be, and not left alone or left outdoors? What if we put that kind of energy into making sure that every person in the state of Alabama was on the same playing field in regards to education? This state would be number one in the country, not number 50.
Mm-hmm. No, you're 100% right, and you're right. You know what? I should write something else and mention that it shouldn't be. I shouldn't just limit the comparisons to prisons. I mean, I think that the juxtaposition between the prisons and the shelters and is an easy one to make. But you're absolutely correct in that we have every time this thing. It's not just it's hunting over bait bills,
Mhm.
killing hogs bills.
Yes.
Any sort of dog bill that comes up. I mean, dog hunting, dog whatever. I mean, I literally had a guy who is in leadership in the House say that they threatened to burn his home down if he
Wow.
voted against a bill, and that he wasn't going against those guys with the dogs. I just it continues to trouble me in this state where we pretend like we're pro-life all the time, where we have these people that do the marches and do all these things. And then when it actually comes to life and to meaningful change in lives, we don't, there seems to be this level of indifference that pushes people away from the political process, the same political process that they're happy to jump into when it's a dog on the, at the forefront. Why is that? What can we do to change it?
I have no earthly idea what can we do to change it.
Yeah.
People love their pets, and don't get me wrong, I have nothing against that at all.
Certainly, yeah.
But I think
Until
that sometimes it's that priorities.
until people, and I think a lot of this, Josh, you and I talk about this all the time in terms of the church community, the Christian community, until the church and Christian community, and we're talking with a pastor here, until they begin writ large to see imprisoned people, as human beings,
Mhm.
whether they're guilty or innocent. Until that happens, until that permeates our churches and our state, then the rest of our state is never going to happen. They don't see them. They don't see them, Josh, as innocent. They assume they're all guilty.
Mm-hmm.
They assume that guilty means we can treat you however the hell we want to without any kind of humanity. And they see dogs as innocents. They see other creatures as innocents.
Yeah. And listen, you know what? I think we could probably maybe extend that attitude to the poor. as
Yeah.
well.
Absolutely.
There's
Absolutely.
often an attitude that I hear from
Absolutely.
people that someone being poor is their own fault. They didn't do X, Y, or Z like they did, and they pretend as though they're not a car backfire away from missing the next couple of checks. And so it just I just the lack of respect for our fellow folks, it often troubles me. But Representative Sellers, I know that too that this was a session that's coming up on an election, and so I know some people were very cautious in kind of what they were doing. Do you feel like what happened in this session was very beneficial to the folks in your district?
I think it has been, regardless of what those outcomes are. I think it's still beneficial, especially you go back to those budgets. You go back to, and then that's very key, making sure you go back to those budgets, that making sure those resources are getting down to those districts.
Right.
I think that's where we make wins. That's where we make progress.
Right. Yeah. Is when you look around your district, what are if you could wave a magic wand? What are the things that you would push through? What are the things that you feel like y'all need the most and need the most help with? Because I know your district, when we talk about some of the poverty stuff, it leads right into your district as well. So what would help there?
I think understanding each district and understand the urban versus the rural, and understanding that what those challenges are between the two, and then when you work on ways of fixing that. So case in point, we look at the urbanized areas. I have a couple of small cities that's within my district to where we were able to get resources within the general fund budget for blight removal. Nobody's going to move to a city to where you see dilapidated house after dilapidated house. So how do we help those municipalities obtain, take down, or restore those properties so it can be tasteful for someone or to desire to move to those municipalities? And so just examples like that is what over and over again that I think that we need to play in. And then some of your urbanized areas, we have homeless issues. In city of Birmingham, we just did a that blighted property law to keep a tracking. Also, it adds some penalty fines to those that are not keeping those properties up, that are not living within those properties. And so those things, as we try to help those municipalities over and over again to survive and to stay on top of, stay in the game. And so I think there's a multiplicity of areas where we could play. I would love to have seen expansion of Medicaid, um, so that persons that need health care can receive it. um, because the ER and the doc in the box should not be your primary care physician,
Right. That's right.
True. That's true.
and that
Yeah.
makes a difference if I'm able to get the proper health care, and I don't have to wait till it's an emergency just to get health care.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, you're right. And poll after poll after poll, and we'll get you out of here. I know we've kept you too long, and we're keeping you away from lunch and everything else. And but the last thing for me, if you look at the polls, and poll after poll continues to show that the most important issues for Alabamians and really everybody across the country at this point right now is
Hmm.
affordability on things. Um, in this session, I followed it along. You and the other House Democrats and Democrats in the Senate as well have done a really good job of remaining focused on those issues, of trying to give people resources, of trying to make sure that there are pathways to reduce the cost of certain items and to do other things. Do you feel like that the efforts y'all are making are being properly communicated to the greater state of Alabama, so they understand what's happening out there, and what could we do better?
I don't think they are, and we have to do a better job at promoting our wins without embarrassing those that work well with us.
Right.
But I don't think that the rest of the public really gets the information or communicated the wins and the struggles and the fights that we actually have. And so each of us as representatives, we have to do a little bit better, do a little bit better job at making sure that our districts and our constituents um, know what those are. I mean, we can utilize our social media, but social media only gets a small piece.
Yeah.
We should utilize every avenue of media or media outlet to make sure that those stories are being told.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe we can help out with that a little bit and tell some of those stories and try to do a better job as well and get these stories out because you've done a really good job as a super minority. I mean, a super minority has gotten done far more than the super majority has in terms
Yes.
of making life more affordable for Alabama residents. And people should let that sink into them. And that should be a story that's told statewide. But
Yes.
Representative Sellers, thank you so much. I
Thank you,
really
Chief.
appreciate it. I know it's a busy day, and we really do appreciate you making the time
Yep.
for us. Thank you so much.
Good to see you
All
again.
right, you guys take care. All
All
right.
All right, thank you. That is Representative Sellers. He's fantastic. Could not represent 57 any better than this man. So, go out and vote for him. All right, we're going to slide out. We're going to come back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week. Back in a moment.